Hello everyone, my name is Cesar Bonilla. Today I'm going to be doing an exposition about the extinction of the species in the Dominican Republic. I'll be talking about the importance of this species and what will be the consequences if this species went extinct. Now I'm going to be sharing my screen so I can show you the material. Let's start. The extinction of the species in the Dominican Republic and why it actually matters. First, I want to highlight that there are about 9,500 different species in the Dominican Republic, and about 15% or 1,300 different species of them are actually endangered, which is quite a disturbing fact. There are about 32 endemic bird species in our country, and most of them are located in the National Park of Los Haitises, which I'll be talking about a little further in. I have to explain the importance of these species in the Dominican Republic. They not only help to amplify the biodiversity of the country, but they underpin food security, medicine, and cultural heritage. Also, the marine species, all in compound, provide about 20% of the protein of the daily intake of a person in the Dominican Republic. So, if this species went extinct or disappeared, we would lose a big part of our diet, which of course will affect us in every single way. Now, Los Altices National Park. Why is this so important? This is a protected park, a protected area. That means that not everybody can enter the park. The only reasons are for educational purposes or scientific investigations. The Los Haitises is called the lung of the Dominican Republic because it holds so many trees, so many mangroves, so many ancient caves, so many culture of the country itself that's the same reason why it's protected. But I also want to talk about a very important function of this park. The mangroves of the Los Haitises actually serve as a barrier against certain natural disasters. For example, when a hurricane comes, the mangroves actually put a barrier so the damage of the hurricane diminishes. And the wetlands of the park also serve as a natural sponge against floodings. So we can start to think about the different consequences that can actually happen if this plant species went extinct. The consequences of natural disaster will be even greater than they are today, which is also a disturbing fact. Now, as a whole, what would be the consequences of losing the flora in the Dominican Republic? First is an ecosystemic collapse. Something very important to note is that plants, we all know this, right? They help other animals, right? By food or by oxygen, right? And these animals help other plants too. So when we break that cycle, we're basically affecting every single species in the ecosystem, right? So we understand that just by affecting one species, we actually affect all of them. Also, we see our consequences in the economic decline because we know that a lot of people, a lot of tourists come to the country because they want to see the whole biodiversity of the country. So if that declines, if we see a decline in the species, we'll also see a decline in the economic side. Now, to finish, what would be the consequences of losing the fauna or the animals in the Dominican Republic? As I said, we'll see an ecological imbalance because these species, animals and plants, actually affect each other. So if we cut one part, it's like cutting one arm from you. It would affect your whole body, not just the arm, right? And something very important is that we, as a country, have a culture, our culture, right? So, and we identify ourselves from that culture in certain species like animals and plants. So, losing those species will actually cause a loss in the heritage and culture of ourselves. We will lose the pride in our country, but of course, we don't want that, right? So, it's very important, right? The call to action that we become aware of our actions and that the actions that we do actually affect the whole country and the whole planet. So we have to be able, we need to make sure that the things that we're doing is for a greater good and not do things because other people are doing, like throwing the trash out in the street, which at the moment doesn't cause an immediate consequence, but it actually has a consequences later on, which we don't see immediately, right? So that's everything for this exposition. I hope you've learned something, and goodbye.